When I was 11, my parents decided to trust me for the first time. They said they'd be away for the weekend visiting my grandma, and that I was old enough to take care of myself. I was so excited to finally feel like an adult. I promised them I'd stay inside, lock all the doors, and call them if anything happened. The first few hours were perfect. I ate way too much junk food, watched scary movies, even though I knew I'd regret it later, and texted my friend Josh nonstop. He was supposed to come over to spend the night, but he got sick that morning and had to cancel. I was a little disappointed, but I felt brave enough to handle it alone. It was around 10:30 p.m. when I heard the first knock at the door. I thought it was just my imagination or maybe the wind. But then I heard it again, slow, heavy knocks that echoed through the house. I froze. My heart was pounding so hard, I could hear it in my ears. I crept toward the front window and slowly pulled the curtain aside just a tiny bit. That's when I saw him. There was a man standing on our front porch. He looked tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dirty hoodie soaked in something dark. At first I thought it was mud, but then I saw it dripping from his hands. Blood. He kept knocking, this time faster, more impatient. My breath caught in my throat. He tilted his head toward the window, as if he sensed I was there. Then he started speaking. "Hey, kid. I need help. Please open the door. I'm hurt." His voice was rough and shaky. He sounded like he was crying, but his face didn't match the voice. He had a wide, twisted smile that made my stomach turn. I backed away from the window, trying not to make a sound. My phone was in the living room, but I felt like if I moved too fast, he'd hear me. Then he started banging on the door with both fists, screaming, "Open the door! I know you're in there! Help me!" I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and called 911. I whispered as quietly as I could, telling the operator about the man at my door, the blood, the screaming. While I was on the call, I heard a loud crash. He had kicked open the front door. I dropped the phone and ran upstairs as fast as I could. My legs felt like they were made of jelly, and I almost slipped on the last step. I darted into my parents' bedroom and hid inside the closet, pushing myself into the darkest corner. I could hear the man's heavy footsteps on the stairs, each one slower than the last, like he was savoring the moment. He was humming now, a soft, off-key tune that made me want to scream. Then he called out in a sing-song voice, come out, wherever you are." I covered my mouth with both hands, trying to muffle my breathing. My heart felt like it was going to explode, each beat echoing so loud in my head that I was sure he could hear it too. I heard the man walk slowly into my parents' room. The floor creaked under his weight. He stopped near the closet, so close that I could hear him sniffing the air. I can smell you, kid," he whispered. I felt a hot tear roll down my cheek. I was shaking so badly that the hangers in the closet were lightly tapping each other. I pressed myself deeper into the corner, praying he wouldn't open the door. Then suddenly, he slammed his fist against the closet door. The wood shook violently, and I let out a small gasp before I could stop myself. "Oh, there you are," he sang. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He started turning the doorknob slowly, as if teasing me. I looked around desperately for anything to protect myself with. There was nothing but shoes and old boxes. Just as he was about to pull open the door, I heard loud banging downstairs. "Police! Drop your weapon and step away from the boy." For a second, there was silence. Then the man let out a loud, furious scream, like an animal. I heard him charge back down the stairs. The police shouted again, followed by several loud bangs, gunshots. I stayed in the closet, frozen, barely able to breathe. I didn't know if he was dead or alive, or if he was going to come back for me. A few minutes later, I heard heavy boots running up the stairs. A bright flashlight beam pierced through the cracks of the closet door. "Kid, it's safe now. Come out." I pushed the door open slowly and saw a police officer standing there, his face tense but relieved. I stumbled out, my legs barely holding me up. As he guided me out of the room, I looked down the stairs and saw the man's body lying at the bottom, surrounded by blood. His eyes were wide open, still staring upward. The officer wrapped me in a blanket and led me outside. I saw red and blue lights flashing everywhere. Neighbors gathered around in shock. I felt like I was floating. Everything around me was blurry and unreal. My parents arrived a few minutes later, running toward me and hugging me so tight, I thought they'd break my ribs. My mom was sobbing uncontrollably. My dad just kept repeating, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." That night changed everything. I never felt safe in that house again. Every creak, every shadow felt like him coming back. Even now, years later, I still wake up some nights, hearing his voice in my head whispering, come out, wherever you are." I thought it would be a fun night alone with my girlfriend, but it turned into the scariest night of our lives. It was the first time my parents had ever trusted me to stay home alone overnight. I was 16, and for months I'd been begging them to let me prove I was mature enough. When they finally said yes and left for a weekend trip to visit some relatives, I felt like I had just been given the keys to my own little kingdom. The moment their car disappeared down the street, I felt this crazy rush of freedom. I ran through the house blasting music, jumping from couch to couch like a little kid. After a few minutes, I caught my breath and texted Mia. Mia and I had been dating for 6 months. She was my first real girlfriend, and honestly, I was obsessed with her. She was funny, fearless, and had this wild energy that always made me feel more alive. I knew she loved horror movies, so I immediately invited her over for a scary movie night. I spent hours prepping the house. I cleaned every surface, sprayed air freshener in every room, and even tried to cook some snacks, which totally failed. The kitchen still smelled a bit like burnt pizza rolls. Eventually, I gave up and settled for microwave popcorn and chips. I wanted the night to feel special, so I built this giant blanket fort in the living room. I stacked up couch cushions, hung fairy lights around it, and put down tons of pillows. It looked ridiculous, but also kind of magical. By the time Mia arrived, my palms were sweaty, and I was checking my hair in the mirror every 2 seconds. When I opened the door, she burst out laughing. "Wow, did a 10-year-old build this?" she teased, stepping inside and looking around. "Hey, it's called Atmosphere," I joked, trying to hide how nervous I was. She dropped her bag and gave me a big hug. Her perfume mixed with the scent of buttery popcorn, and for a second, I felt like I was floating. We grabbed sodas and climbed into the fort. I let her choose the movie, and of course, she picked an old-school slasher film. The kind with cheap jump scares and ridiculous killers. We spent the first half hour throwing popcorn at each other, laughing at the dumb characters, and screaming together during the sudden loud moments. At one point, she screamed so loud, she spilled her soda all over the blanket. We both burst into laughter, and I ran to grab towels. She teased me about my terrible cleaning skills, and I threw a pillow at her in revenge. For a while, I completely forgot that I was supposed to be responsible tonight. Everything felt easy, warm, and fun, like we were in our own world, far away from school, parents or anything serious. Mia leaned her head on my shoulder, her hair tickling my neck. I remember thinking, this is the best night of my life. I had no idea how fast it would all turn into a nightmare. We must have watched movies for another hour. We were so deep into our little world that we didn't even notice how late it was getting. At some point, Mia suggested we take a break and make more popcorn. I got up to head to the kitchen when I thought I heard something. It was faint, maybe a thump or a shuffle coming from outside. I paused, but Mia just laughed and threw a pillow at me. "Don't get all paranoid now," she said, rolling her eyes. I forced a laugh, but my heart was pounding a little faster. I tried to shake it off, thinking maybe I was just being jumpy from the movie. I went to the kitchen, started the microwave, and tried to calm down. While waiting for the popcorn, I glanced out the back window. The yard was completely dark except for the faint glow of the porch light. Nothing. I brought the popcorn back and we settled in again. But this time, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Every tiny creak in the house made me flinch. A few minutes later, Mia paused the movie to go to the bathroom. I was scrolling through my phone when I heard a soft tap at the front window. I froze. At first, I thought it was a tree branch or maybe an animal. But then I heard it again. Tap, tap. I slowly crawled toward the window and tried to peek through a gap in the blanket fort. My stomach twisted when I saw a dark figure standing on the porch. It wasn't moving, just standing there, almost like it was waiting for something. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Mia, hurry up." She came back, laughing about something she saw in the bathroom mirror. But when she saw my face, she stopped cold. "What is it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "There's someone outside," I whispered. Her eyes widened. She dropped the soda she was holding, and it splashed all over the floor. I grabbed her arm and pulled her deeper into the fort, trying to stay low and quiet. We sat there, holding our breath, listening. Then we heard it. Footsteps on the porch, slow and heavy. The doorknob rattled. I felt Mia squeeze my hand so tight it hurt. My mind was racing. I didn't know whether to run, hide, or call the cops. Every horror movie we had watched flashed through my head all at once. Then suddenly, there was a loud bang against the door, like someone kicking it hard. We both jumped and screamed. Whoever was outside wasn't just messing around anymore. They wanted in. I finally snapped out of my panic and grabbed my phone. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely type. I called 911 and whispered to the operator that someone was trying to break into the house. While I was on the phone, Mia kept peeking toward the door. Suddenly she gasped. "He's coming around to the back," she cried. I felt like my brain was melting. I told the operator, and she said officers were on their way and to stay hidden. But how could we hide? The blanket fort suddenly felt like the dumbest idea ever. A giant, obvious target in the middle of the living room. We crawled out and ran to the hallway closet. It was cramped and smelled like old shoes, but we squeezed inside and closed the door as quietly as possible. From inside, we could hear the back door creak open. My heart felt like it might explode. Mia had her hand over her mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. I pressed my ear against the door, praying I wouldn't hear footsteps getting closer. But I did. The heavy, slow steps moved through the kitchen, then into the living room. We heard things being knocked over, like he was searching for us. The sound of his breathing, heavy and wet, was enough to make my skin crawl. Then he started talking. In this low, almost playful voice, he said, "I know you're here. Come out. Come out." Mia started shaking so hard I thought she might faint. I squeezed her shoulder, trying to keep her calm. but I felt just as close to losing it. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped right outside the closet. I held my breath. I could see his shadow under the door crack. Seconds felt like hours. Then he started turning the doorknob. Just then, we heard sirens outside. The guy froze. After what felt like forever, we heard him bolt toward the back door and run outside. I waited another few minutes before slowly opening the door. I almost collapsed when I saw the flashing red and blue lights outside the window. The police came in, searched the house, and comforted us. They never found the guy. He had disappeared into the night. When my parents came home, they were furious and terrified, all at once. They hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Mia's parents came to pick her up, and she wouldn't stop crying. That night changed everything. I lost that carefree feeling I had when they first drove away. I realized how quickly fun can turn into a nightmare, and how real horror can be. I don't think I'll ever watch a horror movie the same way again. I've always felt safe in my house, until that one weekend when I realized someone was watching me from the backyard every single night. I was 17 at the time. My parents had decided to take a quick weekend trip to visit my aunt, and I convinced them to let me stay home alone. I promised I'd be fine. I was old enough, responsible enough. I wanted some freedom. The first night started exactly as I imagined. I ordered a large pepperoni pizza, played some video games, and then watched a couple of horror movies. I even stayed up past 2 a.m. just because I could. Everything felt normal, peaceful, until I heard something. It was faint at first, a rustling sound outside, like someone stepping on dry leaves in the backyard. I paused the movie and held my breath. I told myself it was just an animal, maybe a raccoon or a stray cat. But the noise didn't stop. I turned off the TV and slowly walked to the back door, peeking through the small window that looked out onto the yard. At first I saw nothing but darkness. Then my eyes adjusted. That's when I saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the yard, almost blending with the trees. I froze. My heart started pounding so hard I felt it in my throat. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, like it was waiting. I quickly shut the curtain and backed away. I tried to calm myself, telling myself it was probably just a prank or someone passing through. I went upstairs, locked my bedroom door, and turned on all the lights. But that didn't stop my mind from running wild. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the window felt like footsteps or tapping. I barely slept that night. I kept imagining that if I opened my eyes, I'd see that figure standing in my doorway. When I finally drifted off, I had nightmares about someone breaking in and standing over my bed. I woke up in a cold sweat around 6 a.m. The sun was starting to rise, and for a moment I thought it was over. But I had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. When I woke up that morning, I convinced myself it was all in my head. Maybe I was just paranoid from all the horror movies I watched. I tried to act normal, took a shower, made some breakfast, and even laughed at myself for being so jumpy. By noon, I felt confident enough to go outside. The sun was bright, birds were chirping, and everything looked normal. I checked the backyard, half expecting to find footprints or some sign that someone had really been there. But there was nothing, just an empty yard and my dad's old shed in the corner. I spent most of the day trying to distract myself, playing games, texting friends, scrolling endlessly through social media. By the time evening rolled around, I had almost forgotten about the figure. But as soon as the sun began to set, that heavy feeling crept back in. It felt like the walls were closing in, and every shadow outside looked suspicious. I turned on every single light in the house and closed all the blinds. I even thought about calling my parents, but decided not to. I didn't want them to think I couldn't handle being alone. Later that night, while scrolling on my phone in bed, I heard it again. A soft thump from the backyard. This time, I felt more annoyed than scared. I grabbed a flashlight and decided to check once and for all. I crept downstairs, my heart hammering. I slowly opened the back door and stepped onto the porch. The air felt colder than usual, and it was eerily quiet. I shined my flashlight across the yard. For a moment I saw nothing, just grass and trees swaying in the wind. Then my beam landed on the shed. The door was slightly open. I had never seen it open before. My dad always kept it locked. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. I stepped forward slowly, my flashlight shaking in my hand. As I got closer, I noticed something on the ground. A set of muddy footprints leading from the shed to the back of the yard. My breath caught in my throat. I followed the footprints with my light, and they seemed to disappear into the tree line. Suddenly I heard a creak behind me. I spun around, shining the light wildly, but saw nothing. My mind raced. Was someone hiding inside the shed? Were they watching me right now? Panic flooded my body. I ran back inside and slammed the door shut, locking every bolt I could find. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my phone when I tried to call the police. But then I stopped. What was I even going to say? That I saw muddy footprints? That I thought someone was hiding? I didn't have real proof, and I didn't want to sound crazy. Instead, I grabbed a kitchen knife and ran back upstairs. I sat in my room, gripping the knife so hard my knuckles turned white, listening for any sound. I kept thinking about the shed door, about how someone could be inside right now, planning to break in. I didn't sleep at all that night, and by morning I knew I had to figure out what was really happening before it was too late. When morning came, I looked like a zombie. Dark circles under my eyes, hair a mess, and my hands still trembling. I checked my phone and saw a message from my parents saying they'd be home late that night. I had to survive one more day. I kept replaying the images of the shed door and those muddy footprints over and over in my mind. I decided I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed to see what was inside that shed. Around noon, I forced myself to go outside again. Every step toward the shed felt like walking toward a death sentence. I gripped the kitchen knife in one hand and held my phone flashlight in the other, even though it was broad daylight. When I reached the door, I took a deep breath and kicked it open. The smell inside hit me first. A strong, musty odor mixed with something rotten. My heart nearly exploded. I stepped inside slowly. The light from my phone revealed old tools, bags of fertilizer, and then something that made my blood run cold. In the back corner, there was a sleeping bag. Next to it, empty snack wrappers and bottles of water. Someone had been living there. Suddenly I heard a rustling sound. I spun around, knife up, ready to scream. But no one was there. My chest felt like it was going to burst. I checked every inch of the shed, convinced someone was hiding. Then I noticed a small notebook near the sleeping bag. I picked it up with shaking hands. The first few pages were just random scribbles, but deeper inside, I found lists. My name, my schedule, even notes about when my parents would be gone. I nearly threw up. My knees gave out, and I fell backward. That was when I heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate steps coming toward the shed. I held my breath and peeked through a crack in the door. A tall figure was walking across the yard, wearing a dark hoodie and carrying something shiny. I knew I had to act fast. I quietly crawled out the back of the shed and ran for the house as fast as I could. My lungs burned, and my legs felt like jelly. I slammed the door, locked it, and hid in my closet. From the crack in the closet door, I saw the figure approach the house. He rattled the back door handle, then moved to the windows, tapping softly like he was trying to lure me out. I called 911, whispering every detail to the operator. The minutes felt like hours. I heard glass shatter somewhere downstairs, and I knew he was inside. I covered my mouth to stay quiet. The footsteps came closer and closer. He paused outside my room, then slowly pushed the door open. I could hear him breathing. Suddenly, the sound of sirens exploded outside. The figure froze, then bolted down the stairs and out the back door. I stayed hidden until the police dragged him away. When I finally stepped out, I felt like I had aged 10 years. Later, they told me he was a drifter who had been watching our neighborhood for weeks. He planned everything, right down to the night my parents were gone. That night, I realized just how close I had come to disappearing forever. And now every time I hear a noise at night, I can't help but wonder, is someone out there watching me again?